The piercing wail of sirens shattered the stillness of the night as flashing red and blue lights illuminated Caldwell Enterprises. The towering glass building reflected the chaos below as police cars screeched to a halt. Inside, employees working late paused, frozen in confusion as officers stormed the lobby. "What's happening?" whispered a young intern, her voice trembling. No one answered. The sight of uniformed officers rushing past security shattered the usual calm. Something terrible had happened. Ethan Caldwell, the polished CEO, emerged from the building in handcuffs. His suit, usually impeccable, was rumpled and smeared with blood. The confident aura he was known for had vanished, replaced by a hollow, defeated expression. "Is that Ethan?" someone muttered, disbelief spreading through the small crowd of employees gathering by the windows. The officers tightened their grip on Ethan's arms as they led him to the waiting squad car. His fall from grace had begun. Nearby, Mia Foster sat trembling in the back of an ambulance. Her torn blouse revealed scratches on her arms, and her face was streaked with tears. "Mia, what happened?" asked a paramedic gently. She shook her head, unable to speak, her hands clutching the edges of her shirt. Her wide eyes darted toward the police car carrying Ethan away, her expression torn between fear and despair. The weight of the night had broken her. Inside the office, whispers buzzed. "Did you see the blood?" a woman murmured. "Someone said it was about Mia. Do you think the rumors are true?" For weeks the office had been alive with gossip about an affair between Ethan and Mia. Now, the whispers had turned into something darker, speculation about violence, betrayal, and secrets unraveling. The once idle rumors now felt like the prelude to a tragedy no one could ignore. As the sirens faded, questions lingered in the air. How had a seemingly perfect CEO and a quiet marketing assistant ended up at the center of such chaos? The polished surface of Caldwell Enterprises was cracking, revealing the secrets hidden beneath. Whatever had unfolded tonight, it was only the beginning. The truth, still buried, would soon rise, and when it did, the fallout would leave no one untouched. Ethan Caldwell seemed to have it all: a thriving career, a beautiful family, and a reputation for success. At work, his commanding presence and effortless charm inspired respect and admiration. Yet behind closed doors, cracks were forming. His marriage to Sophia, once built on love and trust, now felt like a hollow shell. "Don't wait up," he often told her, disappearing into late nights at the office. Sophia noticed the growing distance, but dismissed it as work stress. For Ethan, the monotony of his home life felt suffocating, and he longed for an escape. Mia Foster sat at her desk, organizing files while trying to ignore the empty feeling inside. Recently divorced and financially strained, she poured herself into her work at Caldwell Enterprises. Her colleagues respected her dedication, but loneliness crept into her quiet moments. She often wondered, is this all there is now? When Ethan praised her creativity in a meeting, something shifted. "You're talented, Mia," he said, his tone genuine. The compliment lingered long after the meeting ended. She craved recognition, and Ethan's words felt like a lifeline, a spark she hadn't felt in years. During a critical presentation, Mia's pitch captivated the room. Ethan leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Impressive work," he said after the meeting, catching her off guard. "Thank you, Mr. Caldwell," she replied, her cheeks flushing under his steady gaze. Ethan saw potential in her, both professionally and personally. "Let's discuss how we can develop your skills further," he suggested. Mia's heart raced as she nodded. His attention made her feel noticed, valued. For Ethan, her enthusiasm and fresh ideas reminded him of the ambition and excitement his life lacked. Their one-on-one meetings began professionally, but quickly grew personal. Ethan shared frustrations about his marriage, while Mia confided her struggles post-divorce. "You're different," Ethan told her one evening. "You actually listen." Mia smiled, her guard lowering with each meeting. She felt seen, and his attention filled a void she hadn't acknowledged before. Their conversations grew longer, filled with unspoken emotions. The line between mentor and confidant blurred, but neither stepped back. Ethan found solace in Mia's understanding, while she began to mistake his focus for something deeper. Ethan returned home late again, finding Sophia asleep on the couch. He stood in the doorway, guilt gnawing at him, but he pushed the feeling aside. At the same time, Mia sat alone in her small apartment, replaying their conversations. She felt lighter when she was with him, but doubts lingered. Was his kindness genuine, or was she imagining more than there was? For Ethan, Mia was an escape from the monotony of his life. For Mia, Ethan's attention felt like a lifeline. Neither realized how deeply their emotional voids were entangling them. As Mia and Ethan's meetings became more frequent, the office began to buzz with whispers. "She's in his office again," someone muttered. "Do you think they're—" another asked, leaving the question unfinished. Mia overheard fragments of conversations, her stomach knotting with anxiety. Ethan, however, dismissed the rumors with a confident air. "They don't matter," he told her when she hesitated before another late-night meeting. "Focus on your work. Let them talk." But the tension in the office grew, with every glance and whispered word deepening the suspicion surrounding them. Sophia sat at the kitchen table, staring at the clock. Midnight had passed, and Ethan wasn't home. When he finally walked through the door, she asked, "Another late night?" He nodded, avoiding her gaze. "It's just work." But Sophia wasn't convinced. She noticed the way his phone buzzed late at night and the distant look in his eyes. The man she had loved for years felt like a stranger. Determined to uncover the truth, she resolved to dig deeper, unaware of the storm that was about to engulf their lives. Ethan leaned back in his chair, his tie loosened, watching Mia as she reviewed her notes. The late-night meetings had become routine, the dim glow of his office lights casting shadows across the room. "You've really outdone yourself on this project," Ethan said, his voice softer than usual. "Thank you," Mia replied, her cheeks warming. The boundaries had started to blur. Conversations that began with work shifted to personal stories, his frustrations with his marriage, her struggles after the divorce. "You deserve someone who sees you," Ethan said one evening, his gaze lingering on hers. Mia's heart raced. "I think we should stick to work," she replied hesitantly, but the flicker of a smile betrayed her. What had started as mentorship now felt like something neither could name, an unspoken connection that neither dared to fully acknowledge, but neither could resist. Ethan poured himself a drink, staring at the swirling amber liquid. The guilt gnawed at him, but he silenced it with excuses. "Sophia doesn't understand me anymore," he told himself. "Mia listens. She cares." He convinced himself the relationship wasn't wrong. It was inevitable. "Mia's just different," he muttered under his breath, as if saying it aloud made it truer. In his mind, his growing attachment to Mia wasn't betrayal. It was a reprieve from a life that felt suffocating. The lies he told himself became easier to believe with each passing day. "Congratulations, Mia," Ethan said, handing her a letter of promotion. Mia stared at it, stunned. This is unexpected. You've earned it, Ethan replied, leaning against his desk. Your work speaks for itself. The promotion came with a raise and new responsibilities, but it also tethered Mia more tightly to Ethan. She noticed the subtle shifts, his invitations to exclusive meetings, his insistence on her involvement in high-profile projects. Colleagues began to whisper, their congratulations laced with suspicion. Mia felt the weight of their stares, her accomplishments overshadowed by the growing rumors. While the promotion should have felt like a victory, it felt more like a gilded chain, a reminder that her success was now inseparable from Ethan's influence. Mia sat in her apartment, the promotion letter still on her coffee table. What had once felt exciting now filled her with unease. She cared for Ethan, but doubts gnawed at her. Was his interest genuine, or was she just another escape for him? At work, her reputation seemed to teeter on the edge. The whispered gossip, the glances, it all made her feel exposed. I can't keep doing this, she whispered to herself. But the thought of walking away felt impossible. Ethan had become her safety net, and without him, she feared the ground beneath her would collapse. Sophia opened Ethan's jacket, searching for his car keys, when a folded receipt fell to the floor. She picked it up, a hotel charge for a night he had claimed to be working late. Her stomach dropped. Confronting him that evening, she held the receipt in her trembling hand. What is this, Ethan? It's not what you think, he said quickly, his voice defensive. Then what is it? She demanded, her voice cracking. It was a work meeting, he lied. You're overreacting. But Sophia wasn't convinced. The cracks in their marriage had widened, and now she had proof. Mia, we need to talk, Laura said, cornering her in the break room. Mia froze, her coffee cup trembling in her hand. What is it? I heard you and Ethan arguing the other night, Laura said, her tone cautious. Is there something going on? It's not like that, Mia replied, avoiding Laura's gaze. Then what is it? Laura pressed. Because people are talking, Mia, and if this goes south, you'll be the one who pays the price. Mia's chest tightened. She wanted to deny it, but the look in Laura's eyes told her it was useless. I'll handle it, she said finally, though her voice lacked conviction. Laura sighed. Just be careful, okay? He's not the one with everything to lose. The tension in the office was palpable. Conversation stopped when Mia walked into a room. She's only getting ahead because of him, one employee muttered. Mia kept her head down, trying to ignore the pointed stares and hushed conversations. The rumors, once subtle, now felt like accusations screamed into the silence. Ethan noticed the shift, but brushed it off. Ignore them, he told her. They're just jealous. But for Mia, the walls of the office felt like they were closing in. Every glance, every whisper was a reminder of how deeply she was entangled. Ethan's once calm demeanor began to unravel. He snapped at employees during meetings, his frustration spilling over in ways it never had before. Are you okay? Mia asked hesitantly after one outburst. I'm fine, he replied sharply, then softened. It's just, everything feels like it's falling apart. Between his strained marriage, the office rumors, and Mia's growing unease, Ethan felt the weight of his choices bearing down on him. The cracks in his carefully curated life were becoming impossible to ignore, and he struggled to maintain control. This has to stop, Mia said, her voice shaking as she faced Ethan in his office. What are you talking about? He asked, his tone laced with disbelief. I can't do this anymore, she said firmly. The rumors, the guilt, I'm losing myself. Ethan stepped closer, his voice softening. I'll leave Sophia. I'll fix everything. Mia shook her head. It's too late, Ethan. I can't be the reason your life falls apart. Desperation flashed in his eyes. You mean too much to me, he pleaded. But Mia turned away, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered, though she wasn't sure who she was apologizing to, him or herself. The annual gala sparkled with glittering lights and polished smiles, but beneath the surface, tension simmered. Ethan clutched his champagne glass, his gaze flicking nervously between Sophia, who mingled gracefully with board members, and Mia, standing by the bar, avoiding his eyes. You've been quiet all night, Sophia remarked, her tone curious but sharp. Just tired, Ethan replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mia's chest tightened as she watched the couple from afar. She had promised herself she wouldn't make a scene, but the weight of unspoken words burned inside her, waiting to explode. Mia found Ethan near a secluded hallway, his back turned as he adjusted his tie. We need to talk, she said firmly, stepping closer. Mia, not here, Ethan hissed, glancing over his shoulder to ensure no one was watching. You lied to me, she accused, her voice trembling with anger. You said you were leaving her, but she's still here, smiling like everything's fine. Ethan lowered his voice. I told you, it's complicated. This isn't the place for this conversation. You've been stringing me along, she continued, her frustration bubbling over. I gave up everything for you. Ethan's tone sharpened. Keep your voice down. Do you have any idea what would happen if this got out? We'd both lose everything. Mia's eyes filled with tears. I already feel like I've lost myself. Ethan reached for her arm. You need to trust me. But trust was the one thing Mia no longer had. Trust you? Mia repeated bitterly, her voice rising. Around the corner, Sophia froze, mid-step, the voices catching her attention. She leaned closer, her heart pounding. You don't love her, Mia pressed, her voice cracking. You love the control. Sophia stepped into view, her face pale, but set with determination. What's going on here? She demanded, her voice icy. Ethan's eyes widened, his usual composure slipping. Sophia, this isn't what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like, Mia interrupted, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. Sophia's expression hardened as the pieces fell into place. How long? Ethan stammered, searching for words that wouldn't come. Save it, Sophia spat, her voice laced with betrayal. Turning on her heel, she marched back toward the gala, leaving Ethan and Mia standing in stunned silence. Sophia re-entered the room, her composed exterior cracking as she approached a group of colleagues. I hope you're all enjoying the party, she said loudly, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. Conversation stopped, and heads turned. Ethan hurried in after her, but the damage was already done. Guests exchanged murmurs, glancing between the couple. Did you hear that? One whispered. Sophia's voice trembled as she addressed the room. I suggest you ask your CEO about his definition of loyalty. Ethan froze, his carefully curated image crumbling under the weight of her words and the guests' judgmental stares. Ethan returned to his office hours later, slamming the door behind him. The humiliation from the gala burned in his chest. He barely had time to sit before Mia stormed in, her face set with determination. This is your mess, Ethan, she said, her voice trembling with restrained fury. Fix it. I'm trying to, he snapped, running a hand through his hair. You're trying to save yourself, Mia shot back. You promised me everything, and now I'm left with nothing but whispers and shame. Ethan stood abruptly. Do you think this is easy for me? I have a family, a career, and I had a life before you, she interrupted, her voice breaking. Now all I have is regret. Ethan stepped toward her, his voice softening. Mia, I never meant to hurt you. But the sincerity in his eyes only made her anger burn brighter. Ethan reached for her arm, but Mia yanked it away. Don't, she warned, her voice low but fierce. You don't understand, Ethan began, his tone desperate. No, you don't understand, Mia said, backing away toward the desk. I'm done being your scapegoat. Ethan stepped closer, frustration boiling over. You're not walking away from this, he said, his voice tight. In a flash, Mia grabbed a heavy paperweight from the desk. Stay back, she shouted. Ethan lunged, and instinct took over. She swung the paperweight, and it connected with a sickening thud, sending him crumpling to the floor. The commotion drew the attention of the building's night security guard, who burst into the office moments later. What happened? He asked, his eyes darting between Ethan's motionless form and Mia, trembling and clutching the paperweight. Call the police, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The guard hesitated for a moment before pulling out his radio. As sirens approached in the distance, Mia sank to the floor, the weight of her actions crashing down on her. For Ethan, the night had ended in defeat. For Mia, it had changed everything, and not for the better. Ethan sat in the courtroom, his once pristine suit now a symbol of his crumbling empire. The judge's voice echoed as charges of assault and workplace misconduct were read aloud. Cameras flashed relentlessly, capturing his grim expression. The headlines were merciless. CEO exposed. Ethan Caldwell's fall from grace. Reporters dissected his career, turning him into the poster child of corporate abuse. The world he had carefully constructed unraveled overnight. Investors distanced themselves, and public trust in him evaporated. Ethan lowered his head, realizing the weight of his actions had destroyed everything he once held dear. Sophia placed the divorce papers on the dining table, her hand steady, but her heart heavy. Ethan, seated across from her, stared at the documents in silence. For the kids, she said, her voice devoid of emotion. They deserve better than this. He opened his mouth to respond, but found no words. Sophia stood, picking up her bag and glancing back one last time. The illusion of their perfect family shattered as she walked out the door, taking their children with her. Ethan watched, knowing he had lost the people who once grounded him. Mia sat at her desk, staring at the resignation letter she had typed the night before. Her hands trembled as she printed it, but she knew she couldn't stay. When she handed it to HR, the weight on her chest eased slightly. I need a fresh start, she whispered to herself as she walked out of the building for the last time. In therapy sessions, she began to unpack the emotional scars left by the affair. I made mistakes, she admitted tearfully, but I want to move forward. Each session felt like a step toward reclaiming her identity. The board's investigation revealed a damning pattern. Ethan had manipulated several female employees under the guise of mentorship. More victims have come forward, one board member announced during an emergency meeting. The accounts were harrowing. Stories of coercion and misuse of power that painted a grim picture of Ethan's leadership. As the revelation surfaced, employees demanded accountability. He thrived on control, one former employee said in an interview, her voice shaking. The scandal grew, leaving the company scrambling to address the fallout and rebuild trust among its shattered workforce. The once revered Caldwell enterprises now struggled to stay afloat. Clients withdrew their accounts, citing ethical concerns. Stock prices plummeted, wiping out years of growth. In a desperate bid to salvage their reputation, the board announced sweeping reforms. Leadership changes were implemented, and stricter policies were introduced to prevent future abuses. Trust is earned, the new CEO declared during a press conference. But the damage was done. Ethan's actions had left an indelible stain on the company's legacy. For many, the name Caldwell no longer symbolized success, but betrayal and disgrace. Ethan sat alone in a dingy apartment, the silence a constant reminder of his downfall. His phone sat idle, the calls and invitations that once poured in, now a distant memory. Mia, on the other hand, began to rebuild. She joined a nonprofit and found solace in helping others, vowing never to let herself be defined by past mistakes. The company, though scarred, slowly started its recovery. The employees left behind carried the lessons of the scandal, determined to create a better future. In the end, betrayal had a price, paid not just by the guilty, but by everyone involved. Ethan stared at the blank walls of his apartment, his thoughts heavy with regret. He had orchestrated a web of lies, manipulating Mia to fulfill his selfish desires while neglecting the damage he caused. His decisions tore apart lives. Sophia's trust, Mia's sense of self, and his own reputation lay in ruins. Mia sat in her therapist's office, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to feel important," she admitted. Ethan's pursuit of validation mirrored her own, their loneliness feeding a destructive connection. The choices they made, born from insecurity and desperation, spiraled into chaos, hurting everyone they touched, including themselves. The investigation revealed a toxic culture at Caldwell Enterprises, where unchecked power allowed manipulation to flourish. Ethan's behavior wasn't an anomaly, but a symptom of deeper systemic flaws. "It wasn't just him," an employee remarked. "It was the environment that let this happen." The scandal became a wake-up call for change. Ethan sat alone, acknowledging his role in his downfall. Across town, Mia walked out of her first day at a nonprofit, a small smile on her face. She wasn't the same person, but she was determined to rebuild. "I can't change the past," she whispered, "but I can choose the future." In the end, the affair wasn't just a personal failure. It was a symptom of a deeper, flawed system. Ethan lost everything, and Mia emerged scarred but stronger. Their story left a lingering truth. Where power and desire collide, the cost is often paid in broken lives and shattered trust.